When I turned 65, I imagined a night filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and the warm comfort of family. Instead, my dining room sat silent, the candles burning down to waxy ghosts of what was supposed to be a celebration. 3 weeks of planning, the perfect menu, hand-picked flowers, a new sapphire blue dress that made me feel elegant again, and not a single soul came. I had written their names on little cards, arranging the table with care. My son Aaron. His wife, Camille. My grandchildren, 7-year-old Mason and little Lila. My sister Evelyn and her husband. 8 seats, 8 plates, all waiting. I checked my phone over and over, convincing myself maybe I'd made a mistake, but the calendar entry stared back, unchanging. Birthday dinner, 6:30 p.m. By 8, the roast was cold and the cake I'd baked sat untouched on the counter. My chest felt like it was being crushed, but I kept telling myself there had to be a reason. A flat tire, a last-minute emergency. Anything but deliberate abandonment. Then I opened my social feed and my world shifted. There they were. My entire family on a sun-drenched beach, smiling like I didn't exist. A cruise. A celebration without me. My sister laughing with Camille over cocktails, Mason and Lila building sandcastles. And Aaron, my son, my heart, his arm around the woman who had orchestrated it all. The caption read, "Blessed to have the best family getaway ever." Something inside me cracked that night. Not shattered, just a thin, sharp fracture spreading through my chest, reminding me that love can vanish without warning. I sat there in the dim light, the silence of my home screaming louder than any words, realizing this wasn't a mistake. This was deliberate. And that's when the seed of a decision began to grow. A promise to myself that this story wasn't over, and neither was I. Morning came heavy, pressing down on my chest like a weight I couldn't shake. I hadn't slept. My eyes burned from tears I refused to let fall. Instead, I sat in my kitchen staring at the untouched cake, my phone clutched in my hands like a lifeline. Surely there was an explanation. Surely someone would call and tell me this was all a misunderstanding. At 9 a.m. I dialed Aaron. Straight to voicemail. I tried again, my hands trembling, but the same lifeless tone answered me. Camille's phone was next. No answer, not even a text. My sister Evelyn, who had promised me just days ago that she wouldn't miss my birthday for the world, didn't pick up either. Each unanswered call felt like another stitch being pulled loose from the fabric of my family. By noon, my kitchen table was littered with my phone, cold coffee, and desperate hope. My mind kept replaying every moment from the night before. The empty seats, the candles that burned for no one, the laughter I imagined hearing from far away. But then the images from that cruise post carved into my heart like knives. The way Aaron smiled, carefree, arm around Camille as if nothing was wrong. As if I didn't exist. I started questioning everything. Was this the first time they had left me out, or had I been ignoring the signs all along? The late invitations. The vague excuses. The moments when Mason and Lila hesitated before running to hug me, as though they weren't sure it was okay anymore. And beneath the pain, something darker took root. A gnawing suspicion that this wasn't neglect but intention. Someone had been drawing a line between me and my family for years, and I'd been too blinded by love to see it. Yesterday was just the final stroke. And I swore to myself I'd find out why. The next day the house felt colder than it ever had before. I wandered from room to room like a ghost, touching framed photos of family moments that now felt like lies. I tried to remember when Aaron last came over just to see me. When was the last time Mason sat on my lap without looking to Camille for approval? When was the last time Evelyn and I laughed until our sides hurt? The memories came slow, fractured like old film reels losing color. My phone stayed silent. No apology, no explanation. Only the echo of that cruise photo replaying in my head. Their faces shone with joy as though they had finally escaped a burden. And that burden was me. But something about Camille's triumphant smile burned into me. This wasn't just a coincidence or bad planning. Someone had decided I didn't belong anymore, and she was at the center of it. By late afternoon I tried to call Aaron again. No answer. I typed a message instead. Please tell me what's happening. Did I do something wrong? The little dots never appeared. Nothing came back. My chest tightened, the air thick, heavy with dread. I made tea but couldn't drink it. My hands shook as I scrolled through old texts. Years ago, Aaron would send me pictures of Mason learning to ride a bike or call just to tell me about a tough day at work. Slowly, those messages had dwindled, replaced with Camille's carefully worded notes about scheduling conflicts and changes of plan. The pattern was there all along, I just hadn't wanted to see it. That night, I stood in front of the mirror in my sapphire blue dress, the one I'd worn for a celebration that never happened, and made myself a promise. I wouldn't let this erasure continue. Whatever game Camille was playing, I would uncover the truth no matter how much it hurt. The following evening, rain tapped against my windows like a relentless reminder of everything I'd lost. I curled up on the couch, the dim lamp casting long shadows on the walls, and stared at my silent phone. It was as if my entire family had vanished, taking with them every promise of love and belonging they'd ever made to me. I thought of the last holiday we'd spent together. Mason on my lap, giggling as we decorated cookies. Lila tugging at my sleeve, asking me to read her favorite story. Aaron leaning against the kitchen counter, smiling in that quiet way he did when he felt safe. That warmth seemed like a dream now, something Camille had carefully erased piece by piece, until all that remained was this unbearable quiet. When the house felt too heavy to breathe in, I opened my laptop. I shouldn't have, but I went back to that post, the one with their radiant faces under the sun far away from me. I zoomed in on Aaron's expression, searching desperately for hesitation, for guilt, for any sign that this trip wasn't what it appeared to be. But his arm was firm around Camille, his smile easy, like he truly believed this was the best family getaway of their lives. And I was not part of it. The rain outside intensified, echoing the storm inside my chest. I thought of every unanswered call, every event rescheduled, every small moment Camille had claimed as her territory, inch by inch pushing me out of my son's world. It wasn't neglect. It was precision, a strategy. I pressed my hands against my face and swore under my breath. No more silent suffering. If Camille wanted me invisible, she would soon learn I wasn't so easy to erase. Whatever it took, I would uncover the truth and take back my place in the family I had built with love and sacrifice. 2 days later, I dragged myself from bed, the weight of loneliness pressing on my chest. I threw on a gray sweater and wandered through the grocery store just to feel the hum of life around me. Every aisle was a gallery of memories. Pasta Aaron once devoured, cookies Mason used to beg for, tea Evelyn and I once shared on long Sunday afternoons. Each item a reminder of what had been stolen from me. I filled my basket with only bread and milk, too hollow to buy more. At the exit, I caught sight of a mother laughing on the phone, a toddler wrapped around her leg. The sound pierced me raw and sharp, a cruel echo of what I'd lost. Camille hadn't just taken my son's attention. She had stripped away my place in their hearts, erased me like an old photo faded by time. I swallowed the lump in my throat, refusing to cry where anyone could see. I would not let the world witness my heartbreak. Back home, silence wrapped around me like chains. I sat at the kitchen table staring at my phone as if sheer will could make it ring. When it finally vibrated, my heart jumped, until I saw her name. Camille. Her voice dripped false sweetness. "Hi, just letting you know the kids are swamped this weekend. Aaron's exhausted and they're all worn out from the trip. Maybe next week we can plan something, okay?" I bit down hard on my tongue to keep from screaming. "Of course," I murmured, gripping the phone until my knuckles ached. When the call ended, fury burned hotter than grief. This wasn't busyness, it was deliberate exile. Camille was walling me off from my own blood, brick by brick, and Aaron didn't even see it. I looked at my reflection in the window, a stranger staring back. If Camille thought she could rewrite my family's story without me, she was about to learn how wrong she was. The next morning, I sat on the porch clutching a mug of coffee gone cold, my mind replaying old memories like an endless reel of a life that no longer belonged to me. Aaron's laughter as a boy, his small hand clinging to mine at the park, the way he used to call me first with good news. All those moments were ours once, yet now it felt as though someone had stolen not just my son, but every bond we ever shared. I thought of the day he introduced me to Camille. She'd been sweet, attentive, even called me mom within weeks of knowing me. But looking back, I remembered the way her eyes lingered on Aaron, not with love but calculation. It was subtle then, tiny comments, slight shifts that made me feel like a guest in my own son's life. I ignored them, desperate for harmony, believing love could smooth over anything. Now I knew better. Camille hadn't built a family with Aaron, she'd built a cage and locked me out. By mid-afternoon my resolve hardened. I wasn't going to keep begging for scraps of time with my grandchildren. I wasn't going to wait for an apology that would never come. Camille had rewritten my story once, but I could still take the pen back. I picked up my phone and dialed Evelyn. This time she answered after 3 rings, her voice cheerful, almost too cheerful. "Hey, I was just about to call you." "Why?" I could hear it in her tone, brittle and forced. "Evelyn," I said quietly, "why wasn't I invited? Why did you go on that trip knowing it was my birthday?" The silence on the other end was deafening, broken only by a sharp inhale. I could almost feel her guilt pressing through the line. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled. "It wasn't my choice, Ruth. Camille. She made it clear you weren't welcome." And just like that, my suspicion turned into certainty. And fury unlike anything I'd ever known began to burn in my veins. Evelyn's words clung to me long after the call ended, heavy and unshakable. "She made it clear you weren't welcome." My own sister had stood by, silent, while a woman who hadn't been part of our family a decade ago decided I no longer belonged. I sat in the kitchen staring at the floral-patterned wallpaper Aaron once helped me pick out, my mind a storm of memories and questions. When did my voice stop mattering? When did my family stop seeing me as essential and start treating me like an inconvenience? My chest burned, but underneath the hurt was something sharper, colder, a hunger for truth. That evening, I dug through an old wooden box of letters and photos I'd kept from Aaron's childhood. Pictures of birthdays, school plays, little milestones where I was always there. I had given everything for him. Worked 2 jobs when his father left, stayed up countless nights nursing fevers, sacrificed my own dreams so he could chase his. And now, Camille had erased me like none of it mattered. When my phone buzzed again, I snatched it up, half hoping Aaron was calling to explain, to apologize. But it wasn't him. It was Evelyn. Her voice was low, hurried, like someone afraid of being overheard. "Ruth, I didn't want to hurt you, but you need to know, it wasn't just the cruise. Camille's been saying things about you for years." I gripped the phone tighter. "What kind of things?" "That you're forgetful, that you can't handle the kids alone anymore, that you make Aaron uncomfortable sometimes." She's been planting doubts, little by little. The room spun. Lies. Every word designed to turn my son against me, to make me seem like a burden instead of his mother. I whispered, more to myself than to Evelyn, "She's been trying to erase me all along." And for the first time I realized Camille wasn't just keeping me away. She was waging a quiet war, one I hadn't even known I was fighting. Sleep evaded me that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Evelyn's words echoing over and over in my mind. She's been planting doubts, little by little. The more I thought about it, the more pieces of the puzzle clicked into place, forming a picture that made my stomach churn. This wasn't accidental. This wasn't miscommunication. Camille had been crafting my disappearance for years. I remembered the first time I noticed something was wrong. It was Mason's 3rd birthday party. I'd arrived to find the decorations already taken down, Camille apologizing sweetly, saying there'd been a change of plans. Aaron looked confused when I asked about it later, swearing he thought I'd decided not to come. At the time I believed it was a misunderstanding. Now I knew it was another stitch in the tapestry of lies she'd been weaving. Every missed invitation, every excuse, every moment my grandkids hesitated before running into my arms. It had all been part of her plan to sever my bond with them until I was nothing more than a faded memory. By dawn, my grief had hardened into a resolve I hadn't felt in years. Camille thought she could erase me quietly, but she'd forgotten who I was. I was the woman who raised a son alone when the world said I couldn't. I was the grandmother who had built this family with sweat, tears, and sacrifice. And I wasn't about to let anyone steal it from me. I stood in front of the mirror, staring into my own tired eyes, and whispered to myself, "She doesn't know who she's messing with." I decided then, I would gather every truth, every proof of what she had done. I would pull back the curtain on every lie. And when I finally confronted Camille, the woman who had tried to erase me, she would have no place left to hide. The next morning I pulled out old photo albums, text threads, and handwritten notes from birthdays and holidays past. I spread them across my dining table like a battlefield map. Every message, every photo told a story, one that now felt incomplete, tampered with. I traced my fingers over Mason's gap-toothed smile in a picture from last year's Easter egg hunt, remembering how Camille had told me that same morning it was just a small gathering, not worth the drive. Yet there they all were, smiling without me. The pattern was undeniable. I had missed birthdays, first days of school, family dinners, not because I was forgetful or too busy, as Camille had claimed, but because she had made sure I was never truly invited. She had been rewriting history while I stood helplessly outside the frame. Anger churned in my chest, sharp and acidic. My son, my only child, believed these lies. Aaron, who once came to me for advice about everything, now thought I was unreliable, unfit to be a part of his children's lives. It was like watching someone slowly turn him against me while I stood powerless to stop it. My phone buzzed on the table, pulling me from my thoughts. A text from Aaron. "Hey Mom, can we talk later this week? Camille thinks we should all sit down soon. She feels you've been distant." Distant. The word burned in my throat like poison. Camille had stolen years of closeness from me and now dared to paint me as the one pulling away. I stared at the text, my hands trembling, and realized this wasn't just about missed birthdays anymore. Camille wasn't satisfied with pushing me out of their lives. She was trying to destroy my reputation in my own family, leaving Aaron with a version of me that wasn't real. And I decided right then. If she wanted a war of words and memories, I was done fighting blind. I was going to uncover every single truth she'd buried. And this time I'd make sure Aaron finally saw it. 2 days passed before I saw them again. Aaron had texted that they were stopping by for a quick visit, as though seeing their own mother and grandmother was some small obligation to squeeze between errands. I set out fresh cookies Mason loved and Lila's favorite apple juice, hoping for a hint of the warmth we once shared. When they arrived, Camille entered first, her smile sugary sweet but her eyes sharp, scanning my home like she was looking for flaws. Aaron followed behind, distracted, already glancing at his phone. The children trailed last, hesitant, almost wary, as if stepping into a stranger's house instead of their grandmother's. "Hi, sweethearts," I said softly, crouching down to hug them. Mason hesitated before glancing at Camille for permission. Only then did he shuffle forward for a quick hug. My heart cracked just a little more. Lila clung to her mother's skirt, her big eyes darting toward Aaron, seeking silent approval. We sat in the living room and Camille launched into small talk, steering every conversation. Each time I tried to speak to the kids directly, she interrupted. "Oh Mason, don't bother Grandma with that. Lila, why don't you show Daddy instead?" It was so subtle, so calculated that if I hadn't been watching closely I might have missed it. But I saw it now for what it was, erasure in real time. Aaron barely looked at me, nodding along to Camille's every word. The connection we once shared was gone, replaced by a hollow politeness that made my stomach twist. It felt like they weren't my family anymore, just visitors performing a rehearsed act for appearance's sake. When they left, I stood in the doorway watching the car drive off, my cookies untouched, my house quiet once more. And I knew with chilling certainty that if I didn't fight back soon, I wouldn't just lose my place in their lives. I'd lose them entirely. That night, I sat alone in my kitchen long after the sun had gone down, staring at the plate of untouched cookies. The house smelled sweet, but the air felt sour, heavy with everything unsaid during their visit. My hands trembled as I poured myself a glass of water, thinking about Mason's hesitant hug, about Lila's darting eyes, about Aaron's blank smile. My family wasn't just slipping away anymore. They were already gone, replaced by strangers who looked like the people I loved. For years, I'd convinced myself that love was enough, that patience and kindness would bring my son back to me. But tonight, I understood the truth. Camille wasn't just stealing moments, she was stealing me from their memories. Every hesitation, every lie, every change of plans, was a thread she pulled, unraveling the bond between me and the people I'd lived my whole life for. My heart ached with grief, but beneath it, something else stirred. A fierce, unyielding strength I hadn't felt in decades. I wasn't going to let her win this quiet war. I had raised Aaron alone through heartbreak and hardship. I had been mother, father, provider, protector. I had sacrificed too much to vanish from my own story. I pulled out a notebook and began writing. Every missed birthday, every unexplained absence, every subtle insult or whispered doubt Camille had planted over the years. Page after page, I built my case not for revenge but for truth. If I was going to save my family, I needed proof. I needed Aaron to see what had been done to us before there was nothing left to save. As I set down my pen, a strange calm settled over me. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was a mother with a plan, and Camille had no idea that the battle she thought she'd already won had just begun. The next morning, Determination carried me out of bed before sunrise. My notebook lay open on the kitchen table, every page a silent scream of betrayal. I poured myself coffee and stared at the growing list of moments Camille had stolen from me. But one memory stood out. A birthday party from 2 years ago when Mason turned 5. Camille had called the night before, claiming the party was postponed because Mason had a cold. I stayed home worried for my grandson. Later that week, Evelyn mentioned seeing pictures online of a big celebration, Mason grinning with friends, a cake taller than him. I'd brushed it off, convincing myself Evelyn must have been mistaken. But now I knew the truth. I opened my laptop and searched Camille's old posts, scrolling back through years of curated perfection. There it was, a photo album titled Mason's Big Day, with the date matching the day I was told to stay home. My hands shook as I clicked through the pictures. Aaron was there, happy and clueless. Mason wore a birthday crown. Camille's caption read, "The best day ever with all the people who matter most." I wasn't in a single frame. My chest tightened, a mix of heartbreak and fury. She'd started erasing me long before that cruise, testing the waters, seeing how far she could go before anyone noticed. And no one had, not even Aaron. I saved every photo, every caption, every timestamp and printed them out, adding them to my growing file. These weren't just memories anymore. They were evidence. As I stacked the papers, a thought cut through the anger like a cold blade. If Camille had lied about this, what else had she hidden? And how deep had her roots sunk into my son's mind? One thing was certain, I was just getting started. 2 days later, Evelyn came by unexpectedly. I hadn't seen her in weeks, not since that phone call where she admitted Camille was behind my exclusion. She looked nervous, glancing over her shoulder as if afraid someone might see her here. "Can we talk?" she asked, stepping inside before I could answer. I poured us tea, my heart heavy with questions. She sat at the table, twisting her hands in her lap. "Ruth, you need to understand. Camille's been saying things about you for years. She tells Aaron you're unstable, forgetful. She says you're not safe to be alone with the kids." My hands clenched around my cup. "Safe? Evelyn, I raised Aaron by myself. I've never hurt anyone in my life." "I know," she said quickly, eyes brimming with guilt. But she says these things so calmly, so convincingly. After a while, Aaron started to believe them. And I didn't speak up. I should have, but I didn't want to cause trouble. Trouble? I snapped, my voice shaking. "She's cutting me out of my own son's life, my grandchildren's lives, and you call that avoiding trouble?" Evelyn flinched, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I'm sorry. I was wrong. But Ruth, she's clever. Every time you question it, she has an explanation. You forget one detail, misremember one time, and suddenly you're the problem. She makes Aaron think you're losing touch with reality." A wave of nausea rolled through me. Camille wasn't just excluding me, she was rewriting me. Twisting my every word, every action, until even my own family doubted me. I reached across the table, gripping Evelyn's trembling hands. "Then it's time to stop letting her control the story. If Camille's building lies around me, I'm tearing every one of them down." Evelyn met my eyes, fear flickering there. "Be careful, Ruth," she whispered. "Camille doesn't just push people out. She destroys them." That night, I couldn't shake Evelyn's warning. She destroys people. The words gnawed at me, feeding a dread I hadn't wanted to face. Camille wasn't just isolating me, she was ruthless, calculated, and unafraid to scorch the earth if it meant keeping control. The next morning, I decided to drive past Aaron's house. I hadn't been there in months, not since Camille insisted it was too chaotic for guests. I parked across the street, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. Through the window, I saw Mason and Lila playing on the living room floor. My heart swelled with longing, but then I noticed Camille in the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, eyes scanning the street as if expecting me to appear. And when her gaze swept past my car, her smile turned cold. Chilling. Like she already knew I was there. I left before Aaron came home, my heart pounding, shame and anger tangled in my chest. But as I drove away, a thought gripped me. Camille had been controlling not just my access to my family, but what they saw, what they believed about me. She wasn't content to erase me, she needed me painted as the villain. Back home, I opened my drawer of printed evidence. The missed birthdays, the false excuses, the online photos of family-only gatherings. Piece by piece, the puzzle showed a woman methodically cutting me out. replacing me with herself as the center of Aaron's world. And now Evelyn's words haunted me. She doesn't just push people out. She destroys them. I stared at the growing file on my table and made myself a promise. I would expose Camille before she shattered what little remained of my family. But deep down, a terrible fear twisted in my gut. By the time the truth came out, would there be anything left to save? I woke before dawn, my heart pounding as if I'd been running in my sleep. The weight of all the evidence on my kitchen table felt like it was crushing me. Every lie Camille had spun, every piece of my life she'd stolen, stared back at me in black and white. But staring at the papers wasn't enough anymore. I had to act. I made myself tea and sat at the table, staring out the window as the sky shifted from dark blue to gray. For years I'd convinced myself that silence was safer, that love and patience would be enough to win Aaron and the kids back. But silence had only handed Camille the power to erase me. If I waited any longer, I feared Mason and Lila would grow up believing her lies, barely remembering the grandmother who had once been their world. I picked up my phone, my hands trembling. A part of me wanted to call Aaron right then, to tell him everything, to shout the truth so loudly that Camille's web of deceit would crumble instantly. But another part of me knew it wouldn't work. Camille was too clever, too practiced. She'd twist my words before they even reached Aaron's ears. If I wanted to save my family, I needed more than anger. I needed undeniable proof. And then a plan formed in my mind. I would collect everything. Messages, witnesses, moments Evelyn could confirm, pictures and posts Camille couldn't explain away. I'd build a truth so unshakable that even Camille couldn't talk her way out of it. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of hope, small but stubborn. She thought she'd buried me under her lies, but I was still here. And I was done being quiet. This war wasn't over. In fact, it had just begun. 2 days later, Evelyn called again. Her voice was quieter this time, wary, like she feared Camille could hear her even from miles away. "Ruth," she whispered, "I've been thinking about what you said. About tearing down the lies. If you're serious, I'll help you." For a moment I couldn't speak. My throat tightened with a mixture of relief and heartbreak. "Evelyn, I've been screaming into the dark for years and no one heard me. Are you really ready to stand against her?" There was a long pause on the line, then a shaky breath. "I'm scared of her, Ruth. She's dangerous in a way I can't explain. She knows how to twist every situation until you feel like you're the crazy one. But I'm tired of watching her hurt you. Tired of letting her control everything. I should have said something years ago." I closed my eyes, gripping the phone like a lifeline. For so long I'd felt like a lone soldier in this quiet war. But now finally someone was stepping into the battlefield beside me. "Then we do this together," I said firmly. "We gather proof, every lie she's told, every memory she's rewritten. We'll make Aaron see the truth no matter how deep she's buried it." Evelyn's voice cracked. "She's already poisoning the kids, Ruth. Mason asked me last week if you were sick in the head. He said, 'Mommy says Grandma forgets things a lot.'" Her voice broke completely, then sobs spilling through the phone. "She's making them think you're broken." My heart splintered, rage boiling beneath the sorrow. This wasn't just about me anymore. Camille was shaping my grandchildren's reality, turning their love for me into fear and confusion. "Then we fight harder," I whispered, my voice trembling but fierce. "Because if Camille wants to erase me from their lives, she's going to have to go through every ounce of strength I have left." That evening, after Evelyn's call, I sat in my living room with my old phone clutched in my hands. If Camille had spent years rewriting my relationship with Aaron and the kids, there had to be a trail. Messages, emails, invitations that never came, or excuses that didn't add up. Somewhere in the digital dust of the past, the truth was waiting to be uncovered. I opened old text threads with Aaron, scrolling back years. At first, they were filled with love, late-night messages about his new job, photos of Mason's first steps, videos of Lila's baby giggles. My heart ached with every memory. Then slowly the tone changed. More gaps between texts. Short replies. Vague excuses. One message stopped me cold. It was from 3 years ago. "Mom, Camille says you canceled dinner tonight. Everything okay?" I remembered that night vividly. I'd spent hours cooking, only to get a message from Camille saying Aaron was swamped and couldn't make it. I'd sat at my dining table alone, thinking my son was just too tired to come. But he'd been told I canceled. A deliberate lie planted like poison between us. Hands shaking, I started taking screenshots, date after date, excuse after excuse that contradicted what I remembered. Threads where Camille texted me one story and fed Aaron another. Patterns of quiet sabotage that stretched back years. By the time I was done, my phone was full of proof, but my heart felt hollow. I stared at Aaron's smiling face in my favorite photo of us, taken before Camille entered his life, and wondered how much of him I'd lost to her lies. But as painful as it was, I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for the son I once knew, for the love that had been stolen from us, and for the grandchildren who deserved to know the truth about their family. The next afternoon, Evelyn came over in person, a rarity these days. She looked pale, her hands twisting nervously around a set of car keys as if she were holding on to courage that kept slipping through her fingers. "I shouldn't be here," she whispered as soon as I opened the door. "If Camille finds out I'm talking to you like this, she'll make sure Aaron cuts me off too." I ushered her inside, locking the door behind us. "Evelyn, whatever you have to say, I need to hear it." We sat at my kitchen table, a place that once held laughter and stories but now felt like a war council. Evelyn leaned forward, her eyes glassy with guilt. "She's been doing this for a long time, Ruth," she said quietly. "It started small. Little digs about you being tired or distracted, comments about you forgetting things. At first Aaron just brushed it off, but she kept saying it. Again and again until he started to believe her." My stomach knotted, but I stayed silent, letting her continue. "She tells people you make Mason and Lila uncomfortable. That you confuse them, that you've snapped at them when no one was around." "I know it's not true," Evelyn added quickly when she saw my face crumble. "But Camille is convincing. She makes lies sound like concern. And Aaron, he thinks she's just looking out for the kids." Tears burned my eyes, but anger burned hotter. "She's turning my son into a stranger, Evelyn. She's making my own grandchildren afraid of me." Evelyn reached across the table, gripping my hand. "I'm so sorry I didn't stop her sooner. But you're right, we can't let her keep doing this." For the first time in months, I felt less alone. The pain was still there, deep and aching, but now it had a purpose. Camille had built a fortress of lies around my family, but with Evelyn beside me, I had someone to help tear it down brick by brick. Later that evening, after Evelyn left, I found myself sifting through old albums again. My hands shook as I turned the pages, memories both sweet and bitter staring back at me. But this time I was searching for something specific. A crack in Camille's carefully constructed narrative. A detail she couldn't explain away. And then I saw it. It was a picture from Mason's first day of kindergarten, a moment I had begged to witness. Camille told me they were dropping him off super early, said I probably wouldn't want to wake up at dawn for just a quick goodbye. I stayed home, heart heavy, telling myself there would be plenty of milestones to share in the future. But here in the photo, the timestamp told a different story. 8:32 a.m. The normal start of the school day. Mason stood there, bright-eyed, holding his father's hand. Camille smiled at the camera, smug, triumphant, and I wasn't there because she'd made sure I wouldn't be. My stomach turned as I realized this wasn't just manipulation. It was strategy. She was rewriting the memories of my grandchildren, planting a story where Grandma wasn't around because Grandma didn't care enough to show up. I printed the photo, adding it to my growing file of evidence. This wasn't just about being left out of dinners or vacations. Camille had been stealing my place in the family's history, one milestone at a time, ensuring that one day Mason and Lila would look back and think I'd chosen absence over love. But this photo changed something in me. It wasn't just proof, it was a weapon. A way to finally show Aaron how deliberate her cruelty had been. And as I slid it into the folder, I made a silent promise. Camille could rewrite the past all she wanted, but I was about to rewrite the ending. By the next morning, my dining table looked like a crime scene. Photos, messages, printed posts. Every piece of proof I'd gathered over weeks lay spread before me. Each one told the same story. Camille hadn't just pushed me away. She had built a life where I never existed, where my love for my son and grandchildren was rewritten as absence, forgetfulness, even incompetence. But now I had the truth and I was ready to use it. I called Evelyn first. "I'm going to confront Aaron," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. "He needs to see what she's done." Evelyn hesitated. "Ruth, you know Camille won't go down without a fight. She'll spin it, twist it, make Aaron think you're attacking her." She's been twisting everything for years, I said, my grip on the phone tightening. I'm not letting her twist this. We agreed Evelyn would come with me to stand as witness to lend weight to my words. For the first time in a long time I felt like maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a losing battle. Later I sat in my car outside Aaron's house, folder in my lap, my heart pounding like a drumbeat of fear and hope. Through the window I saw Mason and Lila chasing each other in the yard, their laughter a bittersweet melody. That sound reminded me why I was doing this, not for revenge but for love. They deserved to know their grandmother had never abandoned them, that every moment I missed had been stolen, not given away. I whispered to myself, "This ends today," and stepped out of the car. My legs felt weak but determination carried me forward. For years, Camille had held the pen, writing me out of my own family's story. But now I was about to take it back, and the truth would finally be louder than her lies. Aaron opened the door with a puzzled look, glancing between me and Evelyn. "Mom, what's going on?" he asked, his tone cautious, guarded in a way that broke my heart. Camille appeared behind him, her smile sweet but tense, like a mask she'd practiced in the mirror. "Ruth," she said warmly, too warmly. "This is a surprise." "It's time we talked," I said, my voice firm but calm. "All of us." I stepped inside, clutching the folder like a shield. We sat in the living room. Camille perched next to Aaron, one hand on his knee, already trying to control the narrative. "Ruth, if this is about the cruise." "This isn't about the cruise," I cut her off, my voice sharper now. "It's about years of lies." I spread the photos, messages, and screenshots across the coffee table. Aaron frowned, confusion flickering in his eyes as he glanced at them. "What is all this?" "These," I said, my voice trembling but strong, "are the moments you thought I missed because I didn't care. Mason's 5th birthday. His first day of school. Family dinners I supposedly canceled. Camille told you I wasn't there by choice. But I was lied to, Aaron. Over and over again." Camille's face drained of color, but she quickly recovered. "She's twisting everything, Aaron. You know your mother's memory isn't what it used to be." "Look at the timestamps," I interrupted, shoving the printed posts toward him. "Look at the messages where I begged to be included, only to be told you were too busy while you were actually celebrating without me." Aaron picked up a photo, his hands shaking. For the first time, doubt cracked through the wall Camille had built around him. Camille's voice rose, tight and sharp. "This is absurd, Aaron. She's trying to turn you against me." She stood abruptly, her composure cracking, a flash of anger in her eyes that I recognized instantly, the real Camille beneath the sugar-coated facade. Evelyn leaned forward, her voice steady but firm. "Aaron, I've seen it too. I kept quiet because I didn't want to cause conflict, but Ruth is telling the truth. Camille has been planting lies about your mother for years." Aaron looked between us, torn, confusion clouding his face. "Camille, did you really tell me Mom canceled those dinners? That she didn't want to be there?" Camille hesitated just for a second, but it was enough. That pause screamed louder than any denial could. "She's making this up," Camille said finally, her tone desperate now. "You know your mom's always been forgetful. She twists things." "Stop," Aaron said sharply, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. "Stop talking about my mom like that." The silence that followed was heavy, electric. Camille opened her mouth again but closed it when Aaron's eyes locked on hers, searching, pleading for truth he already feared wasn't there. For the first time in years I saw my son's loyalty shift. Not completely, not yet. But the seed of doubt Camille had planted about me was finally starting to turn back on her. Aaron stood, pacing the room, his hand raking through his hair. "All this time," he muttered, staring at the evidence on the table, I thought Mom didn't want to be part of our lives." Tears welled in my eyes, but I stayed quiet, letting him process, letting the truth sink in. Camille tried one last time, her voice honey-sweet but brittle. "Aaron, baby, you know how much I've done for this family. You know how stressful it's been trying to keep everything peaceful. Your mom just..." "No," he snapped, turning to face her. "This isn't about peace. This is about control." His voice broke on the last word, grief and betrayal lacing every syllable. "You made me believe my own mother didn't care about me. Do you understand what that's done to us? To me? To the kids?" Camille's face hardened, the mask slipping completely now. For a brief, terrifying second I saw her rage. the same cold calculation that had been running my life from the shadows for years. But Aaron saw it too, and something in his expression changed. The spell she'd woven was breaking. He turned to me then, his eyes red-rimmed, voice shaking. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I should have known." I reached for his hand, squeezing it tight. "This isn't your fault," I whispered. "None of this is your fault." And in that moment, for the first time in years, I had my son back. The days that followed were fragile but filled with something I thought I'd lost forever: hope. Aaron came by every evening, sometimes with Mason and Lila, sometimes alone. The first few visits were awkward. The kids clung to his side, uncertain, still repeating things Camille had told them about me. But slowly, with time and patience, the truth began to untangle the lies. I showed Mason photos of all the birthdays I'd been told were postponed, explained that Grandma never stopped wanting to be there. I read Lila's stories like I used to, her little head resting against my shoulder again. Each moment stitched back a piece of the bond Camille had tried to tear apart. Aaron apologized over and over, tears in his eyes. "I let her make me doubt you," he said one night, his voice breaking. "I let her build this wall between us, and I didn't even see it happening." I cupped his face in my hands just like I did when he was a boy. "You trusted the wrong person, Aaron. But you're here now. That's what matters." Camille moved out soon after. She didn't fight for custody, maybe knowing that Aaron had finally seen through her facade. The damage she'd caused wouldn't heal overnight, but the truth was finally louder than her lies. For the first time in years, my home felt alive again, filled with the sound of laughter, of children running through the halls, of a son finally looking at his mother with love instead of doubt. 6 months later, on a quiet Sunday evening, we sat around my dining table, the same one that once held untouched plates on my 65th birthday. This time every seat was full. Aaron carved the roast, Mason told a story about his soccer game, and Lila climbed into my lap, giggling as I fed her bites of chocolate cake. Evelyn sat beside me, smiling through happy tears. There were still scars. Trust didn't rebuild in a day, and some wounds would never fully fade. But there was also a warmth in the room that had been missing for far too long. My family wasn't just mine again. It was real this time, free from the lies that had once strangled it. After dinner, Aaron squeezed my hand. "Mom, I promise you this. Never again will anyone make me doubt you. Never again will you be erased from this family." Tears slipped down my cheeks, not from sadness this time, but from the overwhelming relief of being seen, of being chosen. "That's all I ever wanted," I whispered. As Mason and Lila curled up on the couch beside me, the house filled with laughter and love, I realized something profound. Camille had tried to destroy me, to write me out of my own story. But the truth survived. My love for my family survived. And now, after years of quiet suffering, I was finally home. Not as a guest in their lives, but as their mother, their grandmother, their heart. And this time no one would ever take that from me again.